Hello, hi, this is Dr. Anthony Edwards, and I am a assistant professor and director of the Global Campus at Charlotte State University, and I'm honored to be able to deliver this presentation for the Texas Blackboard Users Group Annual Conference. Thank you for your introduction, LaShawn, and I'd like to go ahead and get started. The title of this presentation is Opening the Distance Education Leadership Toolbox, and this presentation, I think, helps to kind of unpack some of the things that we need to do as distance education leaders and how to effectively advocate for our areas and achieve the goals that we need to achieve. Uh, this is going to be interactive. You can tweet me during the presentation at Dr. Tony Edwards on Twitter, and I will try to be following those along with my phone here and to respond to you as well. Um, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the overview for the presentation is actually, it goes through and really unpacks the UPCEA Hallmarks of Excellence in Online Leadership. This is an organization that focuses on continuing and online education, and particularly from a leadership perspective. And so they've developed these hallmarks of excellence in online leadership, and we're going to use that as a career development framework. And this session, again, will be interactive. There'll be opportunities for you to communicate with me through Twitter as well as with each other in kind of small group discussions. And this session will provide distance education leaders with the tools they need to improve their services, to gain resources, and most importantly, advocate on behalf of the students, faculty, and staff that they serve more effectively. So what are these hallmarks of excellence? And you can find them at upcea.edu/hallmarks. There's 7 hallmarks. They are internal advocacy, entrepreneurial initiative, faculty support, student support, digital technology, and external advocacy, as well as professionalism is the last one. So internal advocacy, let's start there. So let's look at what the UPCEA says about that statement. It says, recognizing that online education by its very nature will be an integrated and extensive facet of its university, those charged with leading an enterprise must build internal alliances and reflect the larger goals, values, and strategies of these institutions. So let's look at some of the words that pop out to me there. One is integrated and extensive. So you look at the fact that online education should be integrated. It shouldn't be separate from the whole university. It needs to be integrated. And it needs to be fully extensive and developed. And also looks like another key word there would be, or keywords would be internal alliances. You can't be an island in distance education. You have to really interact with the other parts of the university, whether it's departments or enrollment management, information technology, academic technology. If you have those as 2 separate departments as your institution, financial aid, registrar's office, the academic departments. There's so many different players that can help students be successful and help faculty be successful. And also the larger goals, values, and strategies of the institutions. So I'm going to talk about this, and these are all integrated, but you'll be able to look at these and say, okay, well, what are the larger goals, values, and strategies for my institution? Your institution probably has a strategic plan and probably has goals, values, a mission statement, vision statement, all those things. And so we have to figure out, well, how do we connect distance education to that? So one of the ways you can have internal advocacy is to establish internal communication plans. So a lot of times we think about external communication. I know with my department, we spend a lot of time doing email campaigns to students and prospective students to encourage them to apply, to enroll, to re-enroll, all those things. We also try to improve the communication on our website. But sometimes it's easy to forget that we need to have strong internal communication to the internal stakeholders across your institution. Um, Another important way to establish internal advocacy is to establish and promote key performance indicators. So, in KPIs, this language is basically, your measurable outcomes so that you know that you are hitting your goals, but you can also have goals for internal advocacy. So, whether it's, the number of faculty members who you served, or uh, the number of students who have communicated with you, or the number of staff members across campus who you connect with on a regular basis. Um, Also, identifying and cultivating advocates. So I think it's very important for your department to have advocates across the institution. So whether it's whatever your department is, it's hard to really achieve what you need to achieve by yourself. So figuring out who those people are who really like what your department does and the services it offers, and not just identify them, but cultivate them, give them more support, give them, in a sense, special attention, and make sure that they have what they need so they can continue to tell others your story. Recognize high quality teaching and learning. So, many of us do that already, but we just kind of think about ways that we can, honor the faculty members for what they're doing, ways that we can encourage, support, give them some recognition for the great things that they're doing on campus. Finally, using data and institutional goals to ask for additional resources or support. So a lot of times we want to ask for things, but if we don't connect it back to the data and back to the institutional goals, sometimes it's difficult to get those resources, particularly as we're in this area of higher education where public budgets are decreasing, and there's less access to cash. And so making sure that you're aligned with the institutional goals is really important to be able to advocate for more resources. Okay, let's move on to Entrepreneurial Initiative. So recognizing that online education, again, this comes from UPCEA, is inevitably about innovation, experimentation, risk, imagination. Emerging leaders have to have the skills and creativity to facilitate responsible change. So again, picking out some keywords: innovation, experimentation, risk, and imagination. That sounds very entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurship is separate from management. I mean, management, you kind of know what you need to do, and you're going to kind of just enact those policies. Whereas being an entrepreneur, that means you have to sort of be more creative and figure out what to do going forward to grow your business or grow your department, and takes a lot, of experimentation and risk taking. Skills and creativity. So I think it's a combination of both the kind of the hard skills and the soft skills. You have to have your skills, obviously, in distance education to deliver the services to faculty, staff, and students, but also sometimes requires creativity in how you sell that to people on campus or to external stakeholders. And then finally, responsible change. As leaders, we should be change makers. If we're not creating change, we're just kind of holding a spot and standing still, and we have to be getting better. But it has to be responsible change. Not all change is good change. So you have to be figuring out, what's best for your institution, what's best for your department, and do that. So some examples, the ways you can have entrepreneurial initiative would be to link your institutional brand to your distance education brand. Sometimes it's easy as a department to sort of go and do your own thing, and that can work for a while, but at the same time, you have to really figure out how do we connect and find the pieces of the institutional brand that fit with the department brand so that you're staying on message. And if you stay on message, then those people outside your department are more likely to support what you're doing. Identifying how your program is different or special. I can't tell you how many times, I talk to people at different schools and say, well, what makes your school so special? And they'll say, well, because we just love our students, and we just take care of our students so much better than everybody else. And everybody says that. So it's not really distinctive. I think we have to have that kind of attitude, but we've got to figure out what things we do that are cut above, things that we don't have to do, but we do them because we want to provide that level of exemplary service. At our institution, that's one of our core values is figuring out how do we provide exemplary service and distinctive engagement. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can be different, and it's important for you to figure that out for your department as well. Considering new ideas, sometimes it's easy to do what you've always done and kind of run on autopilot and say, well, every semester, this many days before the semester starts, we do this, and when the beginning of the semester starts, we do that, and then 30 days later, we do something else, and then, we turn on classes, we turn off classes, all those types of things. But it's important to kind of keep a certain amount of margin in your life to be able to consider new ideas, because there might be something you've missed. There might be something that a team member or somebody outside your organization or department can offer to you that might actually be a good idea, something that's working somewhere else that you can apply in a new context. Also using market research to take calculated risks. You don't want to just take any kind of risk. It needs to be data driven, but also understanding sometimes as institutions in higher ed or in other organizations that might use Blackboard, it's kind of easy to get in your box and just say, this is what I do. I'm on my campus and I offer these services and I do this, and kind of really forget, where that higher education exists within the larger environment of the world. And, frankly, there are other schools offering similar services. And so how do we figure out, where the gaps are in the market? So if you're in the Houston region, Gulf Coast area, figuring out what's going on in the Gulf Coast, what are the other institutions in the Gulf Coast doing, and where can you fit in and do something that's distinctive. Also finally, aligning your marketing, your recruitment, enrollment, instruction, tech support, all these different departments and getting them all on the same page. So it's important that you talk and that you work together, even if you disagree. Sometimes it's easy sometimes to have your own little area and think, well, this is what we need, and the other department doesn't see it that way, and let that drive your interaction. But you kind of have to be a systems thinker and really see the big picture and get all those departments on the same page. And that might mean meeting formally, regularly. It might mean meeting for lunch informally. But however you do it, that's something that you need to have that alignment. Okay, faculty support. Recognizing that online education is not a solitary instructional process, but it's one that requires extensive support and resources. Leaders have to envelop their faculty with the tools that they need to create education that's equal to, if not exceeding, that of the traditional classroom. So some things the steps that kind of stand out to me in that language from UPCEA, not a solitary instructional process. So if one person is, designing their whole class and not really interacting much with the instructional support on campus, or departments are offering online programs but not necessarily talking to admissions or career services or all these other areas, that can be difficult in terms of offering the best product that we can or service we can to students. Extensive support and resources. People might think that online is going to be cheaper than face-to-face instruction, but it requires a lot of upfront costs, and these programs are expensive. If you've had to negotiate contracts for learning management systems or other services, that they're not inexpensive, and we have to provide that. It's something that students have to have, faculty have to have, and it requires not only capital, and technology support, but it also requires human capital to support those faculty and staff members who are using these services. So there's a lot of people involved, and that costs money. and it takes time to train everybody. Enveloping the faculty. So to me, that kind of means kind of a 360-degree, uh, whether it's you know, way of really providing the level of support around them that they need to be successful. It's not just saying, it's really kind of an interactive relationship between faculty members and instructional designers, tech support folks, but really providing kind of just-in-time resources that those faculty members need, and education equal to, if not exceeding, that of the traditional classroom. I know there's a lot of times folks that feel like online education is inherently inferior, but we know from doing a lot of the research that's been done that a lot of the outcomes are as good, if not better, in some cases. And it's important that we try as much as we can to kind of take the notion that online is inferior instruction off the table. And the real, I think, advantage that we have in doing distance education is we've got so much data, because every click essentially is some piece of data that's collected, and we've got learning analytics. We've got all these things that we can do. What each student is doing in the online environment, how long they're spending doing its particular assignment or going through a learning module, and so we can track that and try to improve in some ways, in ways that are difficult to do in a face-to-face classroom. And so we've got to look at sometimes the assets or the value that we're bringing, or the value added by adding online and blended instruction, and what they can do, instead of looking at it inherently from a catch-up perspective. So some different ways we can engage in faculty support would be assessing and improving faculty support. I know it's a sensitive topic in terms of assessment of instruction of faculty members. I know that some institutions do, Quality Matters, Online Learning Consortium, different types of assessments, so they have their own homegrown assessments. But it is a way for institutions and faculty members and departments to have those discussions about improving instruction. Linking faculty support to promotion and tenure evaluations, or annual evaluations. Part of it here is not necessarily to use that as a stick, to hold people to the fire, as much as it is to have a carrot to be able to say, here's a reason for you to want to do this, because you can put it in your tenure packet. You can say, hey, these are some things I did, and I know where these activities fit in my tenure packet, because if they don't show up there, it's hard to sell a faculty member on why they should do it. All right, another strategy would be to allow faculty to track their training activities, and this kind of goes along with that tenure packet or online system of tracking faculty activities. So if there's no way to track that, it's just we offer these services, but there's no system. I think about, if I get on Netflix, I know it'll tell me every show that my family watches. But do we do that in terms of being able to say, okay, hey, faculty member, Dr. Smith, here you attended these trainings, here are your certificates or your badges for attending all of these trainings, and here's how you can cut and paste or insert those into your assessment portfolio. And that's, I think, a way to provide additional or exemplary support. Identifying and promoting advocates. Again, a lot of these things kind of translate into multiple hallmarks, but it's really, I think, helpful to look at ways to improve faculty support, but also get more faculty on board. Is figuring out those faculty members who are really engaged, identifying them, promoting them, and getting them recognition gets more faculty members to want to do those things that you're offering. Okay, so let's move from faculty support to student support. And here's the language from UPCEA: recognizing that online students demand a learning experience at least comparable to that on campus. Leaders must be ongoing advocates for students earning their degrees remotely from their institutions. So I think we've talked about that equal or exceeding or at least comparable to. So that works from the faculty side as well as from the student side. So it's both, that should be the case on both teaching and learning. Now, ongoing advocates. Sometimes it's easy to say, well, I'm going to do this one time or I'm going to do that one time and see if it works. But we have to be ongoing advocates and promoting students, and what they're doing in terms of distance education. Because it's easy to sort of promote the students who are on campuses. It's easy to go and take their picture or to talk to them or get a testimonial. It takes a little more work to do that for a distance education student. But it takes that effort to be able to sell that in terms of get that top of mind for folks on campus to see that this is important, because if they don't see them, it's hard sometimes for them to realize how important they are. So some strategies for improving student support would be providing that targeted support using learning analytics and automated communication plans. So we have all these tools now, a lot of our institutions, collecting all this data from the learning management system or from our student information systems, as well as communication plan or customer relationship management systems that can send these automated communication plans to students who are meeting certain criteria for certain support mechanisms. So it's just a matter of are we going to start doing that more systematically? And is that going to become a more regular part of our operations as people who work in education? Developing retention and student success plans for distance learners. I know those folks who work in first year experience and some of those support programs for on-campus students. They've got these detailed retention and student success plans for those students. But if you look at distance learners, do we always have those sort of plans in place? And I think we're moving to an era where we're going to have to provide that level of support. It's going to be different, obviously, for students who are off campus, but we're going to have to provide some level of support and be able to track and show what we are doing. We might be doing things here and there, but we've got to figure out ways that we can better track and show why and what we are doing. Working with institutional partners, so that things like career services, advising to support distance learners. So if we find that we're doing, and this kind of goes with the next thing of providing regular assessment of student support. So I know students on campus, they get surveys all the time. Sometimes it can be difficult to get good response rates for online students, but it's something that we have to continue to work to improve. And as we find things out, we've got to be able to have those kind of crucial conversations with folks on campus to say, here's where there's a bottleneck for this group of students that we may not have considered, and how can we work to improve that for that group of students. Okay, the next hallmark we're going to cover is digital technology. And the statement from UPCEA is as follows: recognizing that technology creates both opportunities and anxieties, leaders have to provide an environment that's current, dependable, and rich in the creative use of tools to enhance learning interaction and program integrity. So technology creating opportunities and anxieties, that's just the nature of the work that we do. There's going to be some great things that happen as a result of technology, but it's going to create new challenges and more work sometimes, some more new processes and procedures, new concerns that we have to think about, and the level, the bar keeps getting raised in terms of what we've got to do. So that's just kind of part of the work that we do. An environment that has to be current, dependable, and rich. So it's the tools we can't continue. I mean, you can't always jump at the next hot thing, but you do have to have a plan for upgrading your tools. It needs to be reliable, dependable. So if your services are always shutting down, then that provides a bad experience for faculty and staff and students. So we have to make sure the services are dependable, and being rich in these creative use of tools. So sometimes it's not the tools themselves, but how we use them. So it's great. We have so many tools at times. If faculty members go to the academic technology department on their campus, I mean, they're sometimes blown away by how many different tools are available to them either through that department or just open source materials. So it's not so much lack of materials, as much as how do we use them in a way that's innovative and effective for student learning. And enhancing learning, interaction, and program integrity. So I think about that interaction piece. We always have to figure out in ways in online classes, do we increase the interaction so it's not just student clicking things independently, so it's not a correspondence course. So that it is allowing them to develop the soft skills that employers say that they want from students. So there's still opportunities to develop teamwork, social skills, communication, quantitative skills, all those things that we need to be able to do. And it's important that we figure out, we've done that very well in the face-to-face environment, but we also got to make sure that we're doing those things in online classes and blended classes. Program integrity, authentication has become a bigger issue. Figuring out ways that we can make sure that the person who's signed up for that course is the person who's logging in, the person who's taking the exam, and all those integrity issues. So we're going to have to continue to work to improve all those things. So strategies for improving digital technology would be to monitor our technology infrastructure just to maintain our dependability and effectiveness, providing regular training and monitor the utilization of training. So it's important that faculty can get trained on how to use the tools and students can learn how to use the tools. But also we monitor how well those trainings being utilized. Or if you've got 500 faculty members on your campus and 15 go through the training, but if you have a goal of what percentage of your faculty members do you want to go through this training over a certain time period, and monitor that. Continuously improve security and integrity. So that's just something we're going to have to continue to do, and working with organizations like TBUG, as well as if you're part of a university system, to improve the service that we offer, as well as cut costs. A lot of these groups allow you to be a part of group purchasing agreements that can sometimes be cheaper than what your institution can get it by themselves. External advocacy. So the statement here from UPCEA is recognizing that online enterprises must represent their institutions to an often skeptical public. Leaders have to be the authoritative voice to regulators, accreditors, alumni, members of the business community, and many others. So, we know that the public is skeptical. We know that there's a lot of talk about the value of college degrees today, and is the price of tuition going up too high for families to be able to afford it? And we know that, and we also know some of the challenges that happen in terms of public funding, but the public doesn't really understand that sometimes, or doesn't really care. They care about what they're paying. But we have to figure out how do we be the authoritative voice and communicate effectively to regulators, accreditors, the alumni, the business community. We can do that by participating in distance learning organizations like TBUG, and having some sort of kind of policy subcommittee or committee within TBUG potentially. Partnering with alumni groups, and getting a distance learner alumni involved in the alumni groups. Partnering with career services. A lot of times they collect data and they do surveys, and probably very few of the distance learners actually do those surveys, or in some cases they may not receive them. So it's important to kind of make sure that the data on the distance education students is being counted. Taking initiative on regulatory compliance issues. So I know one issue in distance education is state authorization. There are others, but this is definitely one where, as a distance education leader, you can have a strong role in making sure that your institution is prepared for changes, whether they be with the state authorization reciprocity agreement, the national agreement, or the regional agreement that Texas was a part of, and figuring out how to get your institution prepared for all those changes and moving toward the national agreement. Participating in accreditation reviews related to distance education. So, whether if you're in SACS or your institution's in SACS, part of the accreditation review process does deal with distance education. So, being a reference for those that are maybe on the quality enhancement plan group to be able to provide them the information they need about distance education standards is a way that you can have external advocacy. And finally, professionalism. A statement here recognizing that the emerging entities need policies and practices that demonstrate the integrity of a profession that's still establishing itself. Those that are leading the growth of online learning have to exemplify the highest ideals and contribute to a growing professional community on a national scale. So, we've got to figure out, what policies and practices are kind of be our agenda. I know that we're in the early spring, we're going to be moving into, in Texas, the legislative season. And so figuring out, what are the most important issues as it relates to distance education in that legislative or to education in general. Maintaining the integrity of the profession, again, fighting against those that really don't believe that online education is valuable, figuring out how do we uphold, the highest standards and promote that. And again, contributing to a growing professional community, and on a national scale or on a regional scale or state scale like TBUG. One way you can do that is to maintain the high expectations through working with your staff, working with faculty members, working with students, and really showing how distance education can be high quality. You can also present at conferences like TBUG. You can present next year, and present in university meetings. So if you're on any committees on campus, or if you're not, try to get on some university committees or committees for your institution and do presentations. I usually do an annual update on state authorization for our academic council for the institution. And so those things are important just to kind of show the professionalism that those of us who work in distance education do on a daily basis. Recognize when students, faculty, and staff participate in presentations or get publications accepted. And so, it's not just for yourself, but for the people that you work with. Being a good leader is recognizing others. And also, you can create branded materials for all of your communication, if it's internal or external. Maintaining the institutional branding guidelines, but just having things that look very nice as they're presented, have some standardization to it, so they know when things are coming from you or from your department. Okay, so here, we can kind of pause. So, we can look at these questions and say, think to yourselves and kind of discuss with one another. I'd like basically what for you to do is to talk maybe to the person, 2 or 3 people next to you, and discuss, what your strengths are in terms of the hallmarks and why, and also maybe which hallmarks you would like to work on next semester and why. So maybe take about 5 minutes and discuss that with your small group, and then after that, we can discuss as a large group, and you can go ahead and actually pause the video now, and y'all can discuss. Okay. Thank you all so much. You can also communicate with me. If you have questions for me specifically, you can connect with me on Twitter. You can send me a message at Dr. Tony Edwards, and I will respond to you as well during the presentation. And you can reach me on the website, and it's also by email. I'm thankful for the opportunity to present, and have a great conference. Thank you.